What's going on, guys? It's Dan Weichart with Weichart Media back once again. Now, it's been a little while since I have joined you on YouTube and Rumble, and so thank you for joining me here today. To give you a little bit of setup, the reason why we're here, typically, I'm sure if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't, please do already. You can find me at Weichart Media on Instagram, Twitter, virtually everywhere. But the reason why we're here is I had a great impromptu interview with a gentleman, strangely enough, out by a gas station who is putting up a Trump flag. Now, that might not strike any of you as particularly odd, but one of the things that I found, it's not strange, and that's kind of what I want to get into. But this individual has put up a Trump flag. We're in Northern Virginia. It's very blue. Guy was a black guy. A little bit out of the ordinary, given the fact that apparently Donald Trump is just a flaming racist, and so are all of his supporters. And so naturally, when I saw this gentleman, I had to talk to him. And so that led me to have a great conversation with Greg. And so I definitely want to give you guys an opportunity to hear that conversation, or at least parts of it. So I will fade in here in a second. And apologies for the audio and the lighting. I literally saw Greg, whipped out my cell phone, and I was like, hey, man, look, we got to have a conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy that interview. Here you go. What's going on, guys? I'm here with Greg. He is a Trump supporter out here in Sterling, Virginia is where we are. Yeah. And so this is Dan with Weichart Media, so I wanted to shop over and hat with him. So firstly, Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with.
Well, I'm Greg. I'm originally from Virginia, but I grew up in California. I'm back here. My family was Democrats for a long time. Actually, my father turned into a Republican. I couldn't understand it. I was like, what's going on? So then he kind of broke it down to me, and
made sense.
It made sense, and it's still making sense,
Copy that.
America is not like for the people that want a handout. You have to hand yourself up.
Copy.
Here in America, man. So I think Trump is getting persecuted. I think they should lay back and let America decide who they want to run this country, because right now the country is getting ran by nobody. Basically, this guy that's running the country, man, at any time he can just fall over. Donald Trump said the other day he walking on toothpicks. I believe he's walking on glass.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So you're telling me a second ago, so I know we started off talking about it. Obviously, a lot of people say Donald Trump's racist, and so are his supporters. Obviously you're black, I'm white. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I really think Donald Trump is a man that judges the man, not the color.
Copy.
Donald Trump actually did more for black people than any president, including Obama. If you check the records, he did a lot for the country, man. That's my thing.
Copy.
That's right. America don't have a beautiful past, but what country does?
None of them.
None of them.
None of them.
So I have to embrace what America is, man.
Correct.
And keep moving. Like I just met you. I don't know you, but your spirit and just your mannerism, and as a man, I'm here with you, man, and it's good.
Copy that. Same. That's why I saw you over here with your sign. I wanted to walk over and chat with you. It's all right, cool, let's chat.
Yeah, so that's my thing. I think a lot of people, man, need to get that color thing out their mind and just, go about what's going on. Because if we don't re-elect Trump, man, this is my honest feeling, we're going to be in trouble.
Copy that. I totally agree, obviously. We're definitely kindred spirits in that regard. And jumping back to the thing, I think it was a Teddy Roosevelt quote, is that the idea of the hyphenated American is just an un-American idea. You, me, regardless of our color or background, we are Americans at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And so, and honestly, I'm glad that you're a fellow Trump supporter as I am. But even if you weren't, we're still Americans.
Yeah, that's right.
Copy that. Well, Greg, dude, thank you for chatting with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll grab some pictures here. And it's awesome kind of meeting you, man. So it'll be good.
Just thanks for the opportunity, man, to be able to talk to somebody, man, that's on the same page, and just, man, we got to get together as one, man, and just do it.
Copy that.
Just do it, man.
Unity, brother.
Yeah.
All right, man. We'll let you go. All right.
All right.
Appreciate you. All right. Now that we're back, thanks for sticking around. That was Greg. I had a great conversation with him. Greg's a phenomenal guy. Definitely wish him all the best in his endeavors. Now, before we get into a little bit more on this subject, again, we thank you for being here. Please drop us a comment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff, both on Rumble and YouTube. We appreciate your viewership wherever you happen to be viewing it. Also, don't forget, we are sponsored by the Badass Patriots Company. So if you haven't, you can follow them on all social media at Badass Patriots Co. In addition, you can slide over to badasspatriotsco.com. That's badasspatriotsco.com, and you can grab yourself some sweet merch. That'll be one of the best ways you can support the channel. We certainly appreciate it, whether you decide to purchase things or you're just hanging out here with me. So we appreciate it either way. Or I should say I appreciate it. Now, jumping into it. Like I said before, I actually played the clip. I had to talk to Greg, given sort of the implication behind what Trump supporters are apparently in the world today, which is to say a lot of people are being made out to be stupid, backward racists who are trying to put a man in power who is inevitably going to wrest total control from the rest of the bodies of government and run our country into a new era of idiocratic dictatorship. So now, obviously, if you're like me, you're conservative out there, you don't think that is the case, whether you would support Donald Trump in the primary or not. I certainly hope you don't think that you don't buy the mainstream media talking points. At least if you are, why are you here? Like, what are you doing? Or at least welcome. You know what? If you are here and you do buy it, welcome. May I be your gateway drug into reality. At any rate, so I had a conversation with Greg, and one of the things that Greg said, both in that interview and in our conversation prior to me actually turning the camera on, one of the key things he stated is like, look, it ain't about black, white, whatever in America. It's about getting out there and do it. Ain't nobody going to do anything for you. Now, I'm paraphrasing what Greg had to say, but that is the general message that he put out. And I couldn't agree with that more. If you're anything like me, I'm in my 30s. I grew up basically in the early 2000s. You know, of course, I was 0 to 10 in the 90s. But gosh bless, who remembers anything from when they were single digits? I certainly don't. I couldn't call that growing up. I was still under my parents' roof, barely. I attended elementary school. I really grew up between 2000 and 2010, when I went from 10 to 20. So in that time frame, at least up until about 2008, and then even well before, racism was dead where I grew up. And I think that was generally the case all over the country. And then unfortunately, despite everybody's thought, the election of Barack Obama resurrected that specter like an undead lich from beyond the grave. And now we're dealing with more race baiters coming back again, which I suspect that what we're seeing now is the final death throes of race baiting grifters who are continuing to try and bait, race conflict in the United States simply to keep their jobs, keep their paychecks coming in. And I guess I understand that, but maybe not to the detriment of the entire country. Pushing that aside, had a great conversation with Greg. Obviously, he and I agree a lot on politics, and so I definitely had to talk with him. But the reality is that there are a lot of people who support Donald Trump in the black community. And quite frankly, that was certainly the case even prior to his recent indictments in Fulton County, Georgia. I think a lot of conservatives are sort of clumsily suggesting that these indictments are going to make Trump far more relatable to the black community overall. And I think that's a clumsy way to phrase that, given it seems to imply that for some reason blacks are more empathetic toward criminals than they wouldn't be, or someone who gets locked up. Now, they may see the fact that he got locked up on unjust or trumped-up charges, pun intended, I suppose. And it's certainly the case that Donald Trump's mugshot is turning out to be an absolute just gift to him and his campaign. I mean, there's already merchandise out there on it. So I think the Democrats are in the sort of classic movie trope, in the attempt to thwart the destiny of Donald Trump being reelected in 2024. I think they may inadvertently cause it. Regardless, black folks supported Donald Trump long before this instance. The reality is that black unemployment was at its lowest under Donald Trump compared to any president in my lifetime. And even before Donald Trump got into politics, Donald Trump was all over music, movies, all that stuff. Like, his lifestyle was certainly one that a lot of people looked up to because he slapped his name in gold letters on the side of basically everything that he owned, and a lot of people were down with that, to include many members of the black community. And so the reality is that people, especially in the black community, liked Donald Trump long before this. And well, they should. They liked him just for being a mogul beforehand, but now they like him because his policies actually worked, not only for the black community, but for everybody. And we're starting to see that sort of unity rise up. And I think what's going to happen here is in 2020, I think we saw Donald Trump with the highest percentage of black voters of any president in my lifetime. It was either 2020 or 2016, but I think it was 2020. I think we're going to see that again, and I think we're going to see that in spades, because the reality is that Americans, strangely enough, white, black, conservative, and liberal, pretty much every American in existence, with the exception of what you might call leftists, radical leftists, have far more in common than they do apart. And the reality is that we have leftism, or radical leftists, which are running the policy of the Democratic Party, and that not only is running their party into the ground, because we're not even debating about how police should do their job, for example. The debate apparently is whether or not they should be there at all. And the reality on the policing issue is that it is true that the black community overall has been hollering for police reform a little bit louder than some other communities over the years. But I have never, up until recently, heard any community arguing that the police should be abolished entirely. And I think the reality is that many black people, I don't even think the reality is the fact that many black people not only don't want the police abolished, they at least want it to stay the same, if not increase police presence in their neighborhoods. Because the reality is that black neighborhoods have black-owned businesses who also don't want to be knocked over by gangsters and criminals running around their neighborhoods, because apparently police are incapable of policing black communities anymore. And this is especially the case in metropolitan areas. You know, I had the pleasure of working for a major metropolitan police force where, and this is the case at a lot of cities, where it was majority minority. White folks were in the minority. At least I think in my department or my particular agency, I think white folks made up like 30 some odd % of the police force. And so when you have a police force which is made up of people from that jurisdiction, and they're trying to police these areas, they know. A lot of these guys know that where they're going. They know their people. They know these things. And they know that individuals in these communities don't want crime around them. That's just one example of radical leftists owning the debate, or owning the stage, if you will, with the Democratic National Party. And so what that's doing is that's driving even liberals who would previously disagree with Donald Trump to Donald Trump. You know, I mean, Joe Rogan's a famous liberal who's voting for Donald Trump. There are many others out there on the internet. And granted, look, there may be people out there who think, okay, you know what, I'm not voting for Donald Trump because of his personal foibles. Okay, I can hear that. Maybe you can't get behind that. I totally understand. But are you going to vote for Joe Biden? You know, if you're out there, do you think that police should be abolished? Nah, then Joe Biden's not your guy. Do you think that abortion should be on demand, legal, and taxpayer funded for any reason whatsoever up through birth? And really, that last point is what you're going up through birth. Like, even if you're pro abortion to some degree, certainly there's somewhere in the line of an infant's development in the womb that you would draw the line. That's not the policy of the Democratic National Party. That's not the policy. Are you for open borders? Unchecked, unregulated crossing of the southern border. If you're not, the Democrats aren't for you. Whether you vote for Donald Trump as a Republican or not is mostly irrelevant. The reality is that if you're for any kind of border security, then you at least should probably be voting for Republicans in your area. Because my complaint with the Republican Party, I'm a staunch conservative, so I'm not asking you necessarily to believe as I do, even though I think I'm right, obviously. I'm not asking you to believe as I do. But if you're going to vote for some kind of Republican, my biggest complaint with Republicans is that Republicans are basically Democrats driving the speed limit. I believe that's a Michael Malice quote, I think. Democrats driving the speed limit, where they're just standing there. They're going the same path that Democrats are going, just slower. And so Republicans of today, for the most part, are basically Democrats of the 90s. I mean, Donald Trump is a great example of this. Donald Trump was a Democrat throughout all the 90s. I'm pretty sure he donated to the Clintons back in the day. We all forget this. Donald Trump was the first president elected to be openly pro-gay marriage upon election. And you know how many conservatives really cared? None. Nobody cared. I believe Donald Trump was also... I don't know personally. Obviously, I don't know Donald Trump personally. That'd be great if I did. But I kind of suspect that if you had him behind closed doors and you were talking to him about the abortion choice, he'd probably support something like a first trimester access to abortion. I disagree with this, but I suppose he would. Being a 90s era Democrat, it makes sense to me. So many people just completely forget this fact. So anyway, if you're a liberal out there, find a local, like, regular old Republican and vote for him. Find a Mike Pence kind of guy. Vote for him. Okay. Oh, another one I forgot. If you're out there and you're liberal and you think that we should be funding foreign war by continuing to send money to Ukraine, Joe Biden's not your guy. Joe Biden's not your guy. I mean, we got plenty of crap going on here in the United States, and I think that it would be a much better use of U.S. budget, taxpayer budget, to secure our southern border, to provide relief for Americans, to invest in American infrastructure, to make a pathway to where we're not in future conflict instead of making a pathway to future conflict. For example, a lot of hay is made over Taiwan and China. Taiwan, if you didn't know, Taiwan houses a great deal of microprocessing factories and research labs and technology. So pretty much if you're using a computer, a cell phone, microphone, headphones, any high-end electronic device uses some level of microprocessors and programming. A lot of that is built in Taiwan, built in Taiwan, shipped throughout the world. If China takes that, there are literally protocols in place at some of these facilities where if China actually were to take over the island, that these factories are set to literally self-destruct because they don't want the Chinese having that sensitive technology. So it would make a lot of sense for us to begin developing infrastructure in that regard, because we kind of rely on technology an awful lot these days. I'd rather not have it to where China or Taiwan gets invaded if we push it that far, and then all of a sudden, your computer or replacement parts or whatever, triple or quadruple or multiplied however many times over in cost. Let's start investing in our own infrastructure, our own manufacturing capability again, and stop trying to force the world to buy you in U.S. dollars at the end of a gun. I like guns. I mean, I got one sitting right here on my desk. There's two more right behind me. I'm all for them. And I was like, but I don't think I should be pointing them at India or Russia or any other country for that matter and saying, hey, you're going to buy in U.S. dollars. Or all of a sudden some dudes in green with the stars and stripes on their shoulder are going to kick in your front door. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're about. America got to be where America is because America built the best stuff. They had the best manufacturing base. I know people are like, well, World War II, the rest of the world was destroyed. Sure, we still built it. I don't know what to tell you. We came back. We had manufacturing. If you want to be safe, we need to have that manufacturing here in the United States as well. And when I say safe, I mean literally safe from violent threats. A big reason why we were able to ramp up into World War II and even compete with the Russians, or the Soviets, I should say, after the fact, was because we had a massive manufacturing base here in the United States that we converted to wartime efforts. We don't have that manufacturing base anymore. The idea of the automotive industry is gone. It doesn't exist in this country to the same degree that it did. A lot of automotive manufacturing, milling, all that stuff got converted to wartime use when needed. It's not here anymore. It's all been offshored. That stuff needs to come home, not only for U.S.-based jobs, but for security reasons. And that's just a few examples. But if you feel that we should continue shipping American jobs overseas and at the same time compromising our own national security, if you think that we should be shipping billions of dollars off to fund foreign wars rather than investing in our infrastructure and assisting Americans, if you feel that abortion should be legal all the way up through birth for any reason whatsoever, on demand and taxpayer funded, if you don't feel that that's the case, what was the first thing I talked about? Or if you feel that police should actually be doing their job and trained and empowered to do so, my friend, if you don't think that police should be abolished, then those are all major Democratic Party positions. And even though a lot of black individuals liked Donald Trump prior to all this, if you don't like the fact that one party in the country is perfectly willing to politically prosecute their chief competition, my friend, the Democrats are not for you. Maybe it's time you think about making a change if you happen to be on this and you're liberal. If you can't vote for Donald Trump, sure, I guess I get it. Find your nearest standard Republican and vote for them, because they're pretty much the Democrats you remember from the 2090s. So, at any rate, that's been me. I'm Dan with White Cart Media. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little rant there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation with Greg. If you haven't already, please drop us a comment, subscribe, like the video. If you're on Rumble, give us that thumbs up, comment there as well. If you haven't already, slide on over to badasspatriotcode.com. Grab some sweet merch if you like. We appreciate your support in whatever manner you see fit to give it. And that's been Dan again. We'll see you next time, guys.